Welcome to Unleashed, the podcast where we redefine leadership by focusing on what truly matters, the people driving change. Change leadership is about guiding people through transformation in a way that inspires them to embrace change because they believe in it. Whether you're a leader looking to foster a culture of growth or someone eager to break through barriers in life and business, this podcast is for you. Now our host, Wendi.
Welcome to the Unleashed podcast. I am Wendi Swanson, and I am your host. Today, we have Clinton Bowie. Clinton is a sales and service professional with a passion for strategy to achieve individual and business goals. He is currently a store manager for a communications company in Canada. Throughout his career, he has intentionally and strategically built high-performance teams committed to customer experience and the achievement of KPIs. The key to Clinton's success has been his commitment to ongoing growth through learning and innovation. Clinton, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Wendi. I really appreciate it. Happy to be on the show with you.
It is so fun to have you on this show. Who would have known that, it was 3 years ago that we would be having podcast fun together.
And I know time has really flown. I think when I first met you, I was still an assistant manager. So, it's really nice to be able to use the learnings that you have taught me and be able to take it all the way to become a store manager.
So Clinton, while we're on that, go ahead and walk us through your journey. What has been your journey?
So, when I first started, I was actually a sales associate for this company. And it was really funny because I didn't ever think I would become a store manager. Actually, I didn't even think I'd become anything beyond a part-timer at the time. And, things kind of went the way they went. I've had fantastic leaders in my life help and support me. And I'm where I am now today because of them.
Mm. Well, you are one of those people, and how you actually, how we met was we were doing a project together in Canada. And as a facilitator and trainer, there are people along the way that just stand out. And Clinton, you are one of those people. I will always remember being in a training with you, and on breaks, you would come up to me and you would ask the best, most insightful questions. And, your questions were about application. And, sometimes when I'm in a training class, the questions that I get as a facilitator are, Wendi, we can't do this, and here's why. And every one of your questions was, Wendi, how do we do this? And how do I take this back to my team? How do I get buy-in and belief? So, Clinton, where does that come from? Your art and gift of curiosity.
I think it's important to understand what it is that the goals are. And from there, how can we achieve them? And the best way to do that is just get clarification, especially from an expert like you, Wendi. I think it was something really special when you actually came and did the trainings for us, because up until that point, I don't think there was any kind of formal training for any managers.
Wow.
At the company. So you coming in and providing us kind of a blueprint or a game plan at the time really was able to set the foundation for where we're going to move forward with how we run stores.
Yeah.
And so as someone that was relatively new to management at the time, being able to give or gain the ideas from your training really allowed me to do things without just guessing. And I think that was really important for me, because when we first start as managers, there's a lot of trial and error. And sometimes you just kind of learn from whoever your immediate manager is. And that might not always give you the best results. But with yourself, you've had so many different companies, so many different successes. Being able to grab from those experiences and get a shortcut to success, I think was amazing.
Yeah, it's always been interesting to me, and it was my personal experience when I started in retail at 15 years old. There was no management training. For me, it was the best salesperson eventually got promoted to management, and I don't know about you, the best salesperson is not always your best manager. So, was that your experience? Or, you said there really wasn't any management training. How did you get promoted into management?
So I was really lucky. I had a fantastic leader in Tony Tien. He's always been my biggest supporter, and I
Mm,
will always appreciate him for that because
mhm.
when nobody else would go up and bat for me, he always did. It's really funny that you mentioned that the best salespeople get promoted becomes like management. I wasn't that case. I was actually probably the worst performer in the store, to the point where when I was promoted to become an assistant manager, the entire team scratched their heads and went, "Really? Like he can barely sell." Um, and I was really lucky because the very moment that I was chosen and promoted to become the assistant manager, I was tasked with we need to sell like 30 tablets by like 20 days left or something. It wasn't a lot of time,
Yeah.
right? And so basically I was tasked I believe we had from December 1st to December 31st to figure it out. He
Oof.
had given me maybe a couple days to be like, we need to sell like 30 or 40 of them, but we don't know how to sell them. So you need to figure it out. So I looked at it and I'm
Love
like,
that.
well, people don't really want to spend $10 on a tablet. But then I rethought about it. I'm like, well, what do people need? Because we don't want to sell people things they don't need. That's not the whole reason we're doing this job. Yes, it's a sales job, but you want to provide the best experience. So what is it that people actually want? At the time, people wanted data because data was a scarcity when I first started.
Mm.
And so basically, for $10, I didn't say you get a tablet. For $10, I said you get a gigabyte of data, which is really funny. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm down for that. And I'm like, and you get a tablet. It's like, sure.
You're selling data. That is awesome.
It's the same product. It's just we're pivoting kind of how we present it, right? And I
That's
learned
right.
this early on that I'm like, it's really how you present the product. And
Mm.
so I brought this to the team and, I want to get the buy-in. I'm like, I need to show them how to do it first. I have to test it. So I started talking to clients and I was like, how about we do this? And they thought about it for a second, like, yeah. And then the team started seeing me doing it. And then they're like, yeah, I can do that too. And then everyone started buying tablets. It was so funny. Yeah, it was really great. And I really think that cemented in my mind that this was the job I enjoy.
Mm.
Because up until that point, it's kind of like, well, I came with strategies for the sake of, closing my own sales. But
Mhm.
now I have to look at it instead of a micro scale, a bit more of a macro scale of how do
Yeah.
I have it easiest for the team to do what I'm doing.
Hmm. So, Clinton, talk to us about that shift going from sales to that broader. It's not only my responsibility to make sales, it's also my responsibility to make sure my team is making sales. How do you successfully make that transition and still be concerned about your own sales as well? Like, what does that look like?
That's a great question, Wendy. I think I think one of the important things is it depends on where you're coming from. Like for me, I've always come from a place of I want my team to succeed.
Hmm.
Um, and in order for them to be able to succeed, I need to make sure that they're free and clear to sell, right?
Mm.
And so one of the things that came to my mind is how do I remove obstacles for my team so that they're actually able to be the best versions of themselves
Hmm.
and equip them with the tools that they need in order to successfully close the sales they need to close. So as a manager, one thing I try to do is I will find the customers. I'll have that conversation with them. Quick 5 minutes to kind of figure out what is it that they're looking for, do a quick synopsis, and then I'll find a team member and I'll pass it off to them.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, my team are the sales professionals. They're the ones that do this day in, day out. As a manager, I also do sales, but not to the extent and the expertise of my team.
Mm.
So it's very important to me that I set them up for success and that I'm able to take away the clients that may not necessarily be a sale for them per se,
Hmm.
right? But I'm also able to, at the same time, potentially convert those clients. And as
Mhm.
I continue to convert those clients, to go from, hey, I might be really upset about X, Y, and Z, or I need help with X, Y, and Z, or A, B, and C is happening. How do I fix it? If I can resolve those issues and the only next step is to do the sale, great. I can go ahead and have my experts work on that for you.
Mm.
And as they kind of watched me do that, they also learned, hey, you know what? If Clinton's not available, I need to learn how to do that. I
Mm-hmm.
need to be able to uncover all the things that the customer needs. And I need to be able to successfully be able to close the customer with all the things that they need so that their experience with us is the best it could be.
Yeah. So dig into that a little bit more, Clinton, in terms of the customer experience. I know, it's all about the customer, and that has certainly been your mantra. And it sounds like you deliver that, and now you're also leading that initiative. So, what would you say is an ideal customer experience in your store?
I think the customer should walk in with confidence. Obviously, when they walk in, they don't really know what to expect because every time that you walk in, you might not get the same person. So my expectation for the team is that if a customer comes in, they might have a question. Whatever that question may be, let's do our best to try to answer that question for them. But at the same time, let's uncover what their needs are. Because ultimately, if I walked into like a car dealership, I wouldn't know anything about the cars. So I need someone to assist me. We need to be those experts for the customer. They just want someone to consult with, and they won't know what we know. So we need to be able to provide them with something that's going to just blow their mind.
Mm.
Whether it's like a special promo, whether it's let's just review what's going on, whether it's, hey, did you know what that we have X, Y, and Z? Or maybe it's just like, hey, let me help you with this one thing. Because
Mm.
guess what? When the customer has a good time, regardless whether or not they buy from you that day, that customer is going to be a customer for life
Mm.
because they felt that, you know what, I got the best experience at this location because they're willing to help me. They're willing to put the time in for me. And even if it wasn't a sale, they know that they can trust us.
Mm.
And as a result of that, they'll always come back. And I think that's something I learned from you, Wendy. We want people that will refer their friends and family and will be repeat clients. And that repeat clientele will literally drive your business,
Mm.
right? In our industry, it's every 2 years that a customer tends to come back. But if
Uh-huh.
they come back sooner or they refer people, then you always have like an ongoing customer base that'll always come back to you. You just need to provide them with someone that they can trust, um, and that they could be like, you know what, I don't know anything about this. Help me drive.
Mm.
Because ultimately, like that's our duty to make sure that they're happy when they leave.
Yeah. Well, and I know, Clinton, before we pressed record, you said that a high percentage of your traffic coming in, you're in a more affluent area, right? And so, we were having that conversation about customers coming in and, we make sure that their needs are met. And then before you know it, a high percentage of your traffic is referral business.
Yes. So what I realized is because it's an affluent area, they have options. For them, it's not
Hmm.
about the money. It's about,
Hmm.
can I trust the person that's helping me? Am
Mm.
I getting the best bang for like the things that I need, right? Not
Yep.
necessarily bang for my buck, but bang for my needs.
Mm.
Because the reality is that customers don't know every single product that we have available to them. So it's actually up to us to make sure that we notify them that we have this and we have that, and it has to match what they actually want,
Mm.
right? What does it match their lifestyle? And it's important that we figure out what the needs are first, and then the optional stuff we make sure we present all of it to them.
Mm.
Because once they know and they're like, man, I'm really glad that you talked to me about this, because their experience with the company is going to be amazing because they're
Mhm.
getting all their needs met
Mm.
all in one place. And if we miss out on all those opportunities by not uncovering that with the client, I would say that that's actually a worse experience, and we shouldn't be
Mm.
making that decision for the customer.
Yeah. So I love how you talk about all of those things as a part of building trust because, I think there's sometimes, I know as a consumer, when I go to get my new phone, and I'm being told I need a screen protector and I need a case and I need the warranty and I need all these things. It's like, oh, do I really need all of those things? And so sometimes people suggest those things to me and sometimes they don't. And I will tell you, I was in a store, got a new phone. I did not get the screen protector. And I will never forget, I went out on a run with my brand new phone. And of course, I dropped my phone. I thought I was putting it in my fanny pack and it crashed. And I did not have a warranty and I also did not have a screen protector. And I was so mad that the store didn't even offer it to me. So I love how you're thinking about that in terms of trust that, you offer those things from a need basis. And how do your customers respond to that?
I think our customers are pretty happy overall because when it comes to experience, it's one thing to be able to provide all of that, but it's another thing to be able to really have that deep conversation about what does your life look like.
Mm,
In your example, if you're telling me you go on these runs, um, and you might end up in a situation where you might drop your phone, or you might lose your phone, or maybe you're traveling, it needs to meet your lifestyle needs.
mm,
And if I'm not uncovering those things, how can I build trust? If I just give you the bare minimum of what you came in to ask me for, how can I build trust? I don't even know who you are at that point.
mm.
I need to understand who Wendy is in order for
Yeah.
me to provide the right recommendations for you. And that's something that I think all team members should be aware of and they should be working on to make sure that customers leave with that confidence
Mhm.
that, hey, you know what? This person understands me,
Yeah.
right? Which is kind of interesting because obviously as a sales environment, I feel like a psychologist at this point.
It's so true. And, I think now more than ever, especially post COVID, and you can speak to this probably more than anybody, you know, as humans, I think connection at this point is really more important than anything.
I agree. I feel like a lot of people think that if you order stuff online and it's like a same day delivery, that it's the same thing as going to a store and really picking out that item that you want.
Mm,
I feel like the online shops will never quite have that same instant gratification that you
hmm.
would get by just going to a store and just grabbing what you want.
Yeah.
But to that same degree, I would agree with you that the human experience, the person to person experience, as we have this conversation about, you know what, maybe you wanted to come in for this product, but at the same time, hey, you know what, we have this other selection as well. So let's look through all of it and really decide what you want,
Mm,
right? Maybe you don't want just one, maybe you want two, maybe you want three. And one thing that we do at our store that I really, really put an emphasis on is that we congratulate the customer on their purchase. I think
hmm.
it's such a special touch when a customer comes in, they purchase a phone from us, and the iPhones are set up in a way, just iPhone as an example, where if when you open the box, it has like a slow pull up to reveal. And what we always do is we say, hey, you know what? I see this every single day. You get to see this once every 2 years. I want you to open the phone, right? But allow me to assist you. So we help them,
Mm,
I'll let them peel it off. I'll slowly lift the lid. I'm like, please lift the lid. They lift, they reveal their new iPhone 16, iPhone 15, whichever one it is. And I say, congratulations on your new iPhone. And the customer is just like, wowed, right? It's such a small thing, but I can see this big, big grin on their face. It's such a special experience for them because nobody's ever said that to them. I feel like most people might just give them the phone and be like, okay, have a good day.
right. If even that, I mean, it's like, I don't know about you. When I go shopping, it's if I get eye contact and I get a hello, I'm jumping up and down because that's more than I'm getting in 90% of the stores I'm walking into. So when a customer walks into your store and you are doing all of these things, you're, asking them what their needs, wants, and desires are, and you're celebrating their purchase. And, I see why you have so many referrals because why would a customer go anywhere else? I mean, that is such a low, like it's not hard to do that. And yet the impact sounds like, I mean, what does the customer do when you celebrate their purchase with them?
They get excited with me. Sometimes they whip out their phone and they're like, let me record this, right?
Oh, are you serious? That's awesome.
So I think it needs to be a special experience because one thing I told my team
Mhm.
is that they need to understand this isn't like fast food. This isn't like, here's your order, go through the drive-through, pick your order, and you go on your way.
Hmm.
The amount of money that clients tend to spend on electronics is
Mm,
equivalent to going to one of the nicest restaurants you can think of. And it's not just a one-time purchase. They're doing this for the course of the next 2 years. So
mm,
imagine you go to a really fancy restaurant, you get the best meal ever, and you're paying for this like for 2 years. That experience needs to match that fine dining quality.
mm,
And so I always use this analogy for my team because it's important for them to realize the impact that they're having on this customer by treating it as though it's a five-star restaurant.
mm. Well, it sounds like, Clinton, you are doing such a great job of leading your team and creating belief in your team with the why of, I love these analogies that you're giving and, getting them behind the things that you're asking them to do. So, as a leader, what would you say your zone of genius is?
That's a great question. Um, for me, I think it's really the work culture.
Mm,
I think I think it's really important for me that people can go to work and be their genuine selves. And you know what? I never really thought about this until one of my other leaders, actually, I was having a one-on-one with him, and one day he was like, I was thinking about the term be your true self. And the
mm,
first person that popped up in my mind was you, Clinton. And I was like, really? That's kind of an odd thing for me to hear. But then I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Whether I'm at work or whether outside of work, I think I'm the same person. And I really want to make sure that my team can feel that way too, that
mm,
they can see the genuine me and that they can be their genuine selves. And those two things, when you really have them come together, if people can be themselves at work and they're not faking it, people recognize that.
mm.
Customers recognize that. That genuine happiness that I give them when I say, hey, you know what? Let's open your phone again. Let's make it fun, right? It's me. And so as an extension, my team learns that and they have fun with it too. Because they realize there's no harm in this. I'm not doing anything that would detract from that experience and they can have fun too. And if everyone's having fun at work,
Mm.
then there's no way we can lose.
Yeah. Well, and I definitely have seen that from you, Clinton, from day one when I saw you sitting in the training room. And you are definitely just that person that authenticity and that transparency just comes through. I mean, there was not a question that you were afraid to ask. It's like, hey, I'm curious. Hey, what do you think of this? Hey, like, and I encourage people to ask questions, and not everybody does. And so you are someone that makes everyone better in the room because of that authenticity. So I think that's exactly what your zone of genius is. And that's going to carry you a long way wherever you choose to go. So I think that'll be exciting to see you in your leadership walk and continuing to just be Clinton, because Clinton's great.
Thank you, Wendy. We're great because of leaders like you.
Oh, well, I appreciate that very much. So, as you go along your journey, how will you continue to measure your success professionally?
For now, I think it changes depending on the role that I am in. At this very moment, I think it's important that if I notice that my teams tend to stay with me, that's a huge, huge compliment. Um, Especially because I understand in an industry like ours, people are going to school, people might have other things they're planning on doing, but they choose to stay with us because they enjoy the work environment, they
Mm.
enjoy the culture that we bring. So the fact that my teams tend to stay with me for 2 to 3 years,
Wow,
I
that's
couldn't be
big.
happier. Yeah, I've actually had team members stay even longer, like 4 or 5. But
Really?
yeah, it's really nice. Obviously, the thing that makes me um I'm happy and sad at the same time is when they move on to do other things. However, I always want to support them. And I really hope that whatever they take away from what they're doing with us, they can take on to their future roles as well. But
Mm,
for me, that's my biggest measure of success, that my team is happy and they're doing what they need to do.
yeah,
And I guess the other half of that would be customers come back, right?
for
So
sure.
I think If as long as I have the first part of the team wanting to stay and I have my experts, then the other half will always be there. The customers always
Yeah.
come back because they trust the team.
Well, it sounds like you've built a culture of fun. You've built an empathetic culture. You understand your people. You know that, if they're heading somewhere else, you'd be their first person to help them get there. And so I'm sure there's a lot of victories on your team. How do you celebrate victories?
I think we celebrate all the time. There's not a day I don't celebrate. I think often I will always bring snacks. Like that's something that I think is important because you know what? There's nothing better than being at work and being like, you know what? There's a free snack that's available to me. And like for me, I think that's just
Love
like
that.
the best thing ever, right?
Oh,
Um,
yes.
and the other half is I always try to show appreciation. And it,
Mm,
it might be a small thing like, I might not be able to do like the grandest dinner at the fanciest restaurant in town, but I think the snacks are really important. At the same time, I also want to say thank you for hard work every time someone finishes their shift.
mm,
I think that's very important to me that they understand that I appreciate what they do.
mhm.
And it comes from a genuine place. I don't just say it for the sake of saying it. I say it
Right.
because I really think, you know what? Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the hard work you're putting in. I know it's taking time away from your day. I understand this is also your job, but I appreciate you for
Mm,
being here and supporting us. And every single shift that when someone finishes, I would say, thank you for your hard work today. I hope you have a good rest of the night.
that's amazing. As a leader, what are some of the things that keep you up at night?
I think there's always kind of shifts in the business, whether it's, new priorities, new projects, new things that they want us to introduce, things maybe they take away.
Mhm.
And because there's always this kind of, it's never set. I have to take that confusion and bring it to the team and simplify it for them in a way where they can digest it and it will not cause friction. It
Mhm.
won't always be the case. Sometimes there is friction because we've always had this, now we don't have this. And being able to bring change to the team, that can be difficult sometimes.
Mm.
With that said, I do think change is important because it allows for growth. So the juggling between how am I going to have these conversations is
Mm.
probably what keeps me up at night.
Mm. Okay. I know that one of the things that is true about your leadership is that you are always growing, you are always learning, you are you are always curious. And so I'm sure that along the way there's been some failures, and failures probably that you learned from. So can you share a flop experience with us and what you were able to learn from that experience and grow as a leader?
Yeah, I think we lost a lot of opportunity when COVID hit, but not for the
Mm,
reasons that people would imagine. So, um, when COVID actually arrived, and we reopened our stores for the first time, I think this was maybe a little bit after the lockdown.
mm-hmm.
Um, the store that I took over had a lineup every single day.
Mm,
And it was to the point where we couldn't service all the customers. People were walking away. There was exhaustion from the team because there's just constantly just next one, next one, next one, while also working through the COVID restrictions was very difficult. And initially, um, it was a mixed bag for me because I've never navigated something like this before. It was to the point where security would come up because of our lineup being so long that they're like, you can't block the store next door to you
mm,
because we were that busy. So because we missed out on all those opportunities, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, there has to be a better way. I refuse to believe that there's not a solution for this because we're losing the opportunity. We're not making the sales we need to make. There has to be a way. And the funny thing is, I know it doesn't seem like much, but we copied Apple's queuing system. It was to the point where every single customer that walked in had to put their name on a wait list
yeah.
in order to be assisted. And it
Mm-hmm.
became so frequent at our location that it just became a thing moving forward for the next
Mm,
like 3 months. And it was a big success from something that initially was like, I don't know how to handle this. Um, and the team just got accustomed to it. And customers got accustomed to it. They just
mm,
knew the moment they came to our store, they had to put their name down. And
Right.
that tells me at the same time, those are repeat clients for
Mm.
sure. Whether it's a referral or a repeat client, for sure, because they knew that we needed to do the wait list.
Isn't that interesting? Wait, those were the days, right? I mean, so many things changed during COVID, and you're probably still experiencing some of those changes. I know the last statistic I saw is post COVID, 33% of the labor force in North America has not returned and will not return either because of retirement, a high percentage retired. Another study that I saw said that when we are interviewing or doing research with the Gen Z group, they are looking for something other than college. They're looking for options other than the military. They're like their whole, what are you going to do after high school is not, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to the military, I'm going to college. The most common answer was something else. Right. So 33% of the labor force did not come back. We're losing a percentage of the labor force. How are you finding great people and how has that affected your business?
Wendy, I also learned this from you. Because it's funny you mentioned this. We still have the referral cards where when we have a really great person that we meet at maybe another, a restaurant, on the street, friends and family, whatever it might be, we have those great people that we run into in our everyday life. We refer them. We say, you know what? I think you'd be a great fit for our business. Would you like
Hmm,
to work with us? Please consider. And that's where we're finding some of our talent.
really? So just ongoing, whether you have a position or not, are you using that recruiting card or is it just when you're looking for people or how does that play out?
So I was in a unique situation because I was helping the entire, well, at least lower mainland of BC hire.
Uh-huh.
So I was always looking for people. If there was
Okay.
good people, I usually talk to the managers and be like, hey, you know what? Do you need a person? And
Mm,
if that person ends up being good, great. Hopefully they apply, right? And I think, like you said, great people probably already have jobs.
mm.
I still remember you saying that back during game plan. Like the best people probably already have a job. So that's where you should
Mm,
be looking.
that
You
is
shouldn't limit
true.
yourself just to the people that apply. Although I will admit I have met some fantastic people that have also applied, right?
Yeah.
With that said, the referral does help. Having
Mm,
that in our pocket does help.
yeah. Any other challenges other than the labor force that you have found post COVID that has created a shift in how you lead, in how you manage?
I think I was really fortunate in that my locations have always been really busy. For whatever reason, whether it was COVID, whether it wasn't COVID, I feel like I was a bit of an outlier in that case.
Mhm.
Um, but I really think that's because of what you had taught us. Everything revolves around the customer.
Yeah.
So I think when COVID happened, probably the most recognizable thing to me is that people were afraid,
Mm.
especially when COVID hit. Like, is this person sick? Am I going to get sick?
Mm.
And so the customer experience would decline as a result of that. But obviously, with restrictions easing and now they're gone, um, not everybody relearned to, hey, let's take care of the customer. Let's have that great
Mm.
experience with them.
Mm.
So any challenges that I have faced is with newer teams that may have not come back with the mindset of let's do our best to help that customer and
Mm.
really take our time and really, sit down, deep dive with them. And with proper training, they do get there. So it
Mhm.
might be a challenge, but it's not one we can't overcome.
Mm. I just, Clinton, I just love your authentic, customer centric, employee centric approach that just, you make it sound so simple.
Well, you made it simple for us. That's what game plan was all about.
Yeah.
Ju- right? Make it simple for the team, make it simple for management, make it simple for the customer. That was the
Mm.
whole point.
And you've clearly built a strong culture around that. So how did you build culture around customer-centric?
So for me, I think that customers will always want to come back to the people that they trust, as I mentioned before.
Right.
So as long as we are able to keep providing that trust to them, they'll always come back.
Yeah.
And that's the key ingredient. It's the trust and repeat clients because everyone has choices. They're not competing with like other brick and mortar. You're competing with online.
Mm-hmm.
You're competing with anyone that sells any product
Mm.
because people have money, they're going to choose where they're going to spend it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's with cell phones or whether it's with food or whether it's with, any hobby that they may have, you're really competing with everyone. So ultimately, you have to make them decide to spend it with you
Mm-hmm.
and that they need to trust you enough to be like, you know what, this is a worthwhile investment on my part. Because really, it's a business relationship. It's a two-way street. It's not just one way. So in order to do that, people need to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
So as I recognize that, I need my team to follow suit.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like that's something you model and they do follow suit. So I so appreciate that, Clinton, we have been able to reconnect after a few years going through implementation and that so many of those things you're continuing to learn and grow and take to the next level. So for our listeners who are listening to this, what is one thing that you would say, advice that you would give to someone who is just starting in sales and they want to be successful in sales, they want to put the customer first. What advice would you give them to be able to do that? What's the secret sauce of building that relationship with the customer?
I think to your point, be your genuine self.
Mm.
There's going to be times where customers will walk in and you might want to tell them this or that. But at the end of the day, they need to know who you are as much as you need to know who they are.
Mm.
So as long as there's that authentic trust between both parties and that both parties can succeed together, I think that's where it really
Mhm.
matters. It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter what you're selling or if you're a manager or not a manager. I think whoever your client may be, you need to have that two-way street of, hey, we can trust each other and that I'll be your person to do this.
Mhm. Okay. And then what would you say to people who are leading the selling process? What is one piece of advice that you would give them to build that culture and to build that want to attitude within the team as a manager?
This is again something from game plan, Wendy. Team needs to be free and clear to sell.
Mm.
So remove any obstacles that are in their way,
Hmm.
and that managers need to be free and clear to manage so that they can actually be able to be there to assist the team. So it's a lot of time management to make sure that everybody is available for each other and that it can be clockwork where everyone's working together to help the customer.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I so appreciate your time, Clinton, and I'm glad that we finally were able to book some time to do this because I know that the wisdom that you have shared, the experiences that you have shared today is going to resonate with a lot of our listeners. So I just want to sincerely thank you for taking the time to be on the Unleashed podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Wendy. It's an absolute pleasure to always talk to you.
It's been fun. Let's do it again soon. Thank you so much, Clinton.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thanks for listening to Unleashed with Wendy Swanson. Make sure to subscribe and follow to be notified when the newest episodes of the podcast go live. Please take a moment to rate and review us. It helps others discover Unleashed and join our movement of forward-thinking leaders. You can find contact information and important links in the show notes. Stay tuned for the next episode, and remember, keep leading with authenticity, embrace change, and choose to live life unleashed.